All right, so welcome. Just a quick little blurb about happenings in the library. Hopefully you guys are receiving the weekly connection that has lots of upcoming events and things. Their field trip tomorrow is to Oregon Horse Rescue, which it was pretty amazing the work that they're doing there. And I've also started a virtually booked program where students can click on any of these books and they will link them to Sora, and they read those books as they are available and can share their reading there. Just some inspiration and ideas for books that are in Sora, because I know that a lot of times they get overlooked, but there's some great ebooks and audiobooks there.
So what does Sora stand for?
Sora is our ebook and audio book. It's just the name of the it's Overdrive actually, and it's the name of the app that Overdrive uses for our ebooks and audiobooks. So these are all the ebooks and audiobooks that we have at the district level, and there are we got hundreds and hundreds. Well, over I think 2,000 really amazing, diverse, high interest books with the grant we got from the EEF. So I really recommend digging in there to explore those. And on our library page, there's also a link where you can watch a video that'll show you how to navigate that too. And then just upcoming in April, once I'm done with OBOB, I'm hoping to add a virtual makerspace club and maybe a breakout EDU club, maybe some virtual challenges. So keep an eye out for those in the weekly notices and newsletters, because I'll be talking about those. And then hoping to do more PD for you guys. I've had a little bit of feedback that people want to learn more about what Breakout EDU is. Want some more instructions around Nearpod, Kahoot, how to integrate Flipgrid and use screencasting. So really this is about you. So if you have other things that you want to learn, you can reach out to me and let me know, and I'm happy to organize whatever you need for PD. So
can you just give me a brief, like what is Breakout EDU? Just out of curiosity.
EDU is pretty cool. So usually in person, you're given this box and it has like 4 different locks on it, and the locks are all different.
So it's like an escape room kind of thing?
Yes, yep. Oh, cool. This will be they have virtual ones, so nice. They're pretty cool. My family and I do them every once in a while because it's kind of a fun thing to do together. So okay. So there's also, I can share this out in an email as well, just other links. This is the link to ebooks and audiobooks versus Sora, the library webpage. So there's some useful resources there. And then let's move on to what is flipped learning. So I love this graphic because it kind of will expand on what is being said right here. So flipped learning is a pedagogical approach in which direct instruction moves to the individual learning space. So in our case, that online piece that kids are doing at home, and the resulting group space, either classroom or Zoom, is transformed into a dynamic, interactive learning environment where the educator guides students as they apply concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. But this video right here will give us a little intro. I think it's a good perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and play that and then give it over to Justin.
I'm Aaron Sams, and I teach science here at Woodland Park High School. My ultimate goal, I guess, as a teacher is to help students become learners who can learn for themselves and by themselves. One of the problems that I was guilty of even prior to flipping my classroom around was the classroom was centered around me. I told them exactly what to learn, how to learn it, what assignments to do to learn it, and when to learn it, and how to prove to me that they learned it. I don't do that anymore. We changed the place in which content is delivered. Instead of standing in front of a class and delivering, here's how you do this type of problem, here's how this works, I deliver that direct instruction now asynchronously at home through these videos that we make with Camtasia Studio. Times till whole.
Oh, we didn't do that last time.
The last step, they were already whole numbers. We had 1, 1, and 4. Here we don't have a whole number. So here's a few little tricks when you need to multiply by whole numbers. If one of your numbers ends in 0.5, you're going to multiply by 2.
All right, something 0.5 times it by 2.
Right.
Okay, write this down, guys.
Yes. If something ends in 0.3 or 0.33 or 0.66, you multiply by 3. And when the kids come to class, they don't show up to learn new stuff. They show up to apply the things that they learned at home and to ask me questions about the things they learned at home. So now they can have my lesson, if you will, what I would normally have stood up and lectured to them in class with some added features. They get that at home. And then what they were expected to do for homework is now what they do in my class. Life is different for me because I no longer am the guy who stands up in the front of the classroom and just yaks at a student for an hour or however long the class is. Now I walk around the class and I help kids. I'm a tutor, I'm a guide, I'm the putter-outer of fires, whatever it happens to be. In my crazy chemistry class, I walk around and do that. I don't stand up front and teach under the kind of the traditional model. I'm Aaron Sams. I'm a teacher. I'm a dad. I'm a husband.
And we're good. All right, so I'm going to stop screen sharing. I'm going to pass this on over to Dustin, and he's going to help us wrap our brains around how we can make this happen in our classes. Dustin, I need to make you, are you good? Can you share? You're good. Okay.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. It's good to have you here. We were not expecting a large group, but the group keeps getting bigger, so that's always pleasant. And I see some familiar faces. Tommy, I see you in there. Tommy's a fellow middle school science teacher, so we work together quite a bit. And so, yeah, the flipped classroom, that's kind of what I got excited about this, because what I realized was that when we start to transition back with students, it's going to be a mess, right? It's going to be a situation where you have some students at home, some students in class, some students who just aren't going to come to class ever because they're not comfortable, they're immunocompromised, somebody in their family's immunocompromised, whatever. And then we're going to be going back to school and then back home, all remote. I mean, it's just going to be all over the place. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what the heck are we going to do? So I got pretty excited about the Modern Classrooms Project and this idea of a flipped classroom. But quickly, first, again, my name is Dustin. I work at Lane ESD. I was a teacher, middle school science teacher at Kelly Middle School for 20 years. And I switched over a couple years ago to the Lane ESD to help with anything STEM related. And then COVID hit and everybody was like, hey, who's going to help out with like Zoom for teachers? And I'm like, oh, I can do Zoom. And who's going to help out with Canvas? Oh, I can do Canvas. And I just love tech tools. And so I ended up being the one that helped people. And they're like, okay, so you're no longer the STEM person. You are the instructional technology person, at least for now. And then we'll figure out what we're going to do later. So for the time being, probably somewhere in the next year, I am the instructional technology support guy. You have folks in 4J that are at the district office that do that work as well. Like Justin Huntley, for example, and Misty Jackson, they're kind of ones there to help. And of course, Amy, she's can help a lot too with a lot of these things. And my job is to help every teacher in Lane County. So I am here for you. We do focus our energy on the rural schools because they don't have a district office. Their superintendent is also their principal, and they're also their SPED director, and they're also, and so I give a lot of one-on-one help with them, but I love working with teachers and talking with people. So please do contact me. I'll put my email in the chat for you. If you have questions or if you want to follow up on whatever I talk about today, please do reach out. I love talking shop. It is my favorite. So that's that. What am I hoping to do? I'm hoping to talk about flipped classrooms, why you might want to do it, what is the Modern Classroom Project, and how is it different than a flipped classroom, and then what I can do to support you at the ESD. So I'm going to start off with a little quote. If you've read The Alchemist before, it's a great book. If you have not, I strongly recommend it, especially if you're feeling a little beat up. I think it's an exceptionally good book for that. So I'm rereading it right now. I reread it about every 5 years or so. And I love this quote: "Secret of life is to fall 7 times and to get up 8." And I don't know about you, but heard from a lot of people that they feel like they're falling down a lot. So as I was told when I first started teaching my first year, a teacher there said, your job, your goal this year is not to quit. That's it. If you can not quit at the end of your first year, you've succeeded, you're good, awesome, we'll move on to the next. And I feel like this COVID year is kind of like that same thing. Like the goal is just not to quit. Keep doing the best you can, keep getting up, and keep moving on. So there's my inspiration for you. So Amy showed that little video, and so just by raise of hands, how many of you have actually kind of understand what a flipped classroom is, that general concept? So several of you do. Okay, lots of thumbs up. How many of you have actually done it before? Actually flipped your content in your curriculum? So a couple. All right, cool. I did this when I was teaching math, and I think that math in particular is a really, I'll call it a straightforward, maybe not easy, but straightforward course to do it in, because there is this content, this lecture skill that you want them to learn, and then you want them to practice it. And I loved it for a couple reasons. One was that, and I guess I can just come over to advantages, disadvantages. I loved that the students could watch the video whenever. So they didn't have to be in my classroom to get the material, to get the content, the explanation. They could be at home, they could be sick, they could be at home. I mean, I had a student who was, she had surgery like 4 times a year just because of a medical condition she had. So she would be out for 2 weeks at a time every time she had that. And I hadn't figured out how to do it in science, and I wish I had, because this would have been amazing for her. But in math, it was really great. Parents would watch with their kids and they would say, thank you for this, because I don't remember how to do middle school math. And so it was really helpful, and was actually kind of a bonding moment between parent and child to work things out together. Students can pause it and rewatch it multiple times. I remember this one kiddo who was not somebody who picked up concepts really fast. He was somebody who took time to work through concepts. And he came in one morning, he was like, that was so awesome. This is like, I'm finally understanding math, because I can stop it and I can go back and I can watch you say something 7 times if I need to, until it finally clicks in my head, and then I can move forward to the next section. And so that was really cool. It's like I talked about for absent students, new students though too. Like if you, I don't have any review. I mean, I used to have students come in all the time, somewhere randomly throughout the middle of the year. Sometimes they would come and then they would leave, and then they would come back at the end of the year. And what do you do if it's like right at the end of a unit, or right in the smack dab in the middle? Like, how do you get them started? It's like throw them to the wolves and say, good luck, have fun. So the ability for them to just watch these videos and get kind of caught up with the class is really, really cool. Helping students who are behind, right? So if you have students who, for whatever reason, didn't do an assignment, right? They have something going on at home and they aren't doing their homework or whatever, it allows them some access to that. So, and then my favorite part was that I got to spend time in class talking to students, usually trying to disrupt them and get them off task to some degree or another. But I didn't have to spend my time up in front being like, Tommy, stop talking. Jesse, get back to work. You know, that it's like, I didn't have to do that. I could just walk around and talk to people. So I loved it. I thought it was really great. There were some issues. When I did it, this was probably 10 years ago in my math class, there were definite access issues. A lot of students didn't have devices. I was burning DVDs all the time for kids who had like an Xbox and they could play the DVD in their Xbox. And then I had students who come in before school or at lunchtime or after school to get the work done. And that kind of sucks, right? If you have to come in extra to get things done. But it was doable. But nowadays, most students have some sort of content or some sort of technology. They may not have the access, the Wi-Fi yet, but at least they can go somewhere, download a video that you produced, and then they can come home and they can watch it as many times as they want. So our access to technology has definitely increased, which is really nice. It is a lot of upfront work. If you've ever you probably have started making some of your own videos for your classes right now. And to do thoughtful, content-driven work, it takes time. It takes time to get into a workflow. It gets easier the more you do, right? The more videos you make, the faster they are. And if you set them up so that the videos don't have dates in them and they don't have anything that's time related. So for example, like we don't mention COVID in it. If you don't mention a particular page or a unit in your book, you just talk about a concept, then even if the curriculum changes, you're still going to be doing one-step equations, or you're still going to be talking about what happens to molecules as air heats. And so you can just keep using that same video in multiple years in the future. So it kind of, you put the work in now, and then you can kind of reap the rewards later on. And then the other thing is you can also use other people's videos. It's ideal to use your own because the students want to see your face. They want to hear your voice. They really appreciate that. But let's be real, you just got to survive. So, you know, take other people's videos and use them. If you have another, I mean, like in the 4J district, one of the beauties is that there's so many teachers across the district that are doing things. If you want to share videos with teachers across the district who are using the same curriculum as you are, then, you know, one person can make a video for this lesson and one person can make a video for this lesson. I'm one of those teachers who was kind of like, yeah, that was great and all, but I would want to do it like this, or so I would still remake it. But even if I just watch somebody else do the video, I'd be like, oh, that's a cool way to explain that, or at least that's the thought process. I don't have to go through the organization aspect of it. I can just listen and say, okay, now I'm just going to re-record it myself because I want to be my weird and goofy self.
Dustin, while you're on that really quick, there's somebody who asked about your favorite video recording platform and your way of sharing that.
So thanks for asking. I would definitely say whatever you are used to, that would be my favorite one for you. So I'll just start with that caveat. My personal favorite is Screencastify. I like it for a couple of reasons. One, the paid version, you do have to pay for it, but the paid version is only $20 a year, and it allows for a lot of editing. And I like to be able to have the opportunity to cut a chunk out in the middle of my video, to be able to splice in other videos, or I do a lot of video work in this position that I'm in right now. I do a ton of it. So being able to put little text boxes in and things like that. I like that personally. It does increase the time it takes to make a video, so be as it may. But probably for Canvas users like yourselves, the one thing I like the most is there's a plugin for Screencastify in Canvas. I click that plugin and it's super easy to embed a video. So I really like that. And then the video is like in your Canvas page. They don't have to click on a link and go to another tab and see it. So that's probably my favorite. Can you upload, edit Zoom footage into Nearpod or Edpuzzle? Yeah, yeah, absolutely, you can. Yes, any video that you have can go into Nearpod, it can go into Screencastify, it can go into Screencast-O-Matic. Did I say Screencastify or did I say Screencast-O-Matic?
You said Screencastify.
I meant Screencast-O-Matic. Screencastify was my original first favorite. Yeah, sorry about that. I just realized.
No, that's okay. And I am a huge fan of the shortest distance between 2 points is the route you know. But the route that I know, I'm so inefficient at the moment that I'd rather have something better. Yeah. So I appreciate the.
Yeah, if you're using Zoom, it is an inefficient process because you make the video, then you have to upload it to a service, and then you have to let it do all its thing. Screencast-O-Matic is very efficient once you kind of get your workflow going. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then some students won't watch the videos, and I think that's a big issue. And I think so. There's a couple things. One is that there will probably always be students who don't do the homework, whatever you assign. Probably doesn't matter. And that could be because their home life, it's just not conducive to homework. Maybe they have to work. Maybe they have to take care of brothers and sisters. Maybe it's just a loud, uncomfortable, unpleasant place to be in. Who knows? But there will always be students like that. And so one of the things that I found was that for my students who didn't watch the videos, they would come into class and be like, oh yeah, I didn't actually watch the video yet. It's like, okay, no problem. Here's your iPad, have a seat, watch the video. And everybody else is going to get to work together at the table on whatever activity it is or whatever application it is that they get to do. And pretty quickly, students were like, I want to find another solution. I would like to be able to be in talking to students and not just plugged into a device. Now, I will say there were a few students who were like, I am perfectly happy to just sit in the corner and watch a video and not have to interact with any human beings. So it didn't work for everybody, but it worked for most. So just put it out as that for you. Yeah, so any other questions about that? Those are great questions that you're asking. Oh no. This is from Modern Classes Project that I'm going to talk about in just a minute, but this is a basic progression to think about. There's planning, and most of your time should be on the planning part where you're thinking about what is it I really want to say? What are my goals for this particular lesson? And in particular, try to make them as short as possible. Like one piece of information, one content chunk is really all you want to do in a video. I was just talking to a colleague and she said her son, who's in middle school, his teacher put a 6-minute video up to watch. And he's like, 6 minutes, I'm not watching it. And so just kind of, if you can get it less than 5, that is usually the breaking point for especially middle schoolers. High schoolers, you could probably push it to 6 or 7 minutes and they'd be pretty good. But unless you're super engaging and really exciting, it's hard to watch a video for much more than 6 or 7 minutes. So just kind of keep that in mind. Using your recording, lots of different things to use. Again, I mentioned Screencast-O-Matic, one of my favorite. Screencastify is really common. Loom is a really common one to use because it's free. Explain Everything. I like Explain Everything, especially for if you want to do any kind of drawing on the screen while you're recording. So I often think about math teachers here where you might want to be writing out a problem, or maybe it's a social studies teacher who wants to show and trace the river and how what other countries are around that river, or the trade routes or something you want to be drawing on a map. So that's pretty nice. Explain Everything allows you to do that. It's an iPad app. And so you would record on your iPad and you can draw on it. You can kind of draw with your cursor, but it's just not very good. I'm not very good at drawing with my cursor. So that's something to check out if you're interested in that. And then enhancing it using something like Edpuzzle or Nearpod, where you can have students pause the video and take notes, pause the video and work out the math problem before you show the solution, any of those kinds of things. Guided notes if you're doing some sort of content piece. And then, of course, sharing it out onto Canvas or something.
Dustin, can you talk a little bit about just the recording process and how it's super easy for me. I know when I'm recording and making how-to videos to like do them a gazillion times because I goofed up or didn't like the way I said something, and how maybe we can get past that, some ideas, because otherwise it'd be really cumbersome. I know if you're making videos a lot and you're that picky.
Yes, indeed. Okay, there's 2 things. One, I'll just say planning. The more you put in the planning, the more that helps in your thought process. I like to personally build a slideshow. I use Google Slides, and I kind of build out what the content that I want to be talking about. So it prompts me, I don't forget to talk about certain things, but I don't put too much on it. I try to keep just the kind of main headings on there. Any images, anything like that I want to refer to. And then I think one of the most important parts is just to let go and do it one take recording and move on, and know that it's not going to be perfect, because when we teach in class, we're not perfect. I will constantly forget things in one class versus another class, especially if I have multiple sections in the same course. And that's just going to be the way it is sometimes, and that's okay. If you actually make a mistake, you can make a game out of it where you ask the students to find the mistake, or whatever, bonus points for anybody who can figure out that I messed something up. The game in class for me was always spelling. So whenever I made a mistake on my spelling, then who could find my spelling errors, which was not hard to find, but constant. So hopefully those help. Those are the tricks that I use to get get past it a little bit. All right, so that's kind of flipped classroom concepts, big picture ideas and thoughts. Any questions about that before I talk about Modern Classroom project?
No, I think you covered a lot. I think the big issue for us, a lot of people are stuck with the whole equity issue around it. But I think the technology piece has been resolved. And so then it's just a matter of, making sure that kids are actually accessing the videos in their time. But I think you spoke to that with, offering time before and after school or during office hours or at the beginning of class. So those were good ideas.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of equity, it's, one of the biggest questions I think we need to start thinking about as educators are especially around homework. I think equity can be a real issue. Homework can be a real issue around equity. It's something that we have come to expect as parents. It's something we've come to expect as teachers and as students, that will just be a standard given norm. And at best, it can be a real time saver and it'll allow you to really progress and move quickly through a course. But at worst, it leaves behind the very people we're trying not to leave behind. And so finding that balance between those two is not easy. I personally chose that I wasn't going to do homework in my science class. I just said, not going to do it, because there was too many students who either prioritized other classes like math and language arts, or it was just too overwhelming and too much for them to do, and they didn't do it. And so then how can I base my instruction on a student doing work or not doing work? That I found really, really challenging. So I'd encourage you to, if you are going to do homework, I think the flipped learning is better because it's not as much of a lift for students. It's easier to be successful in just watching a video and following along and doing some work along with it than it is to try to answer a question that you didn't understand in class in the first place. And allow students to generate thoughtful questions they have to bring to class, and then use that time to really help them with it. So as much as you can, think about what's the impact on the students that struggle the most in your class with the assignments that you're giving them. I think that's important to think about. Which does lead pretty well into the Modern Classrooms project. I found this about 4 months ago, something like that, in a podcast. Listen to Cult of Pedagogy. If you listen to that podcast, it's an awesome one. And this, again, the flipped classroom model I thought was going to be really good for the blended learning situation, but even more so, this concept of a self-paced course, I think has real power to it, especially right now when we have some students who haven't been engaging at all and some students who are doing better than they were in class, and allowing students to kind of work on the assignments that they feel are the most essential. And again, being able to watch them as many times as they want. So they do utilize videos a ton, and they allow students to go self-paced. So I'm going to show this little video. Yeah, we got time. I'm going to show this little video, just a little clip of it. And it kind of introduce you to the Modern Classrooms project, but I realized I don't think I actually, I don't think I had audio share when I did that. So let me make sure that I click the little share sound button before I show you the video, which is always a good one. Okay.
Eastern High School is located in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Washington, D.C. Being 100% free and reduced lunch, our students come to us with varied levels of academic performance.
When I came to Eastern, I was sort of shocked with how broad the variety of learning levels was. We have students who have experienced a ton of trauma, who are behind on certain skill sets, are ahead in certain skill sets, have different subsets of experience when they go home. I quickly found out that my traditional model of teaching was not actually effective. So at that time, I realized I needed to make a shift, and I wanted to start by getting rid of the lecture at the beginning of my class. I'm gonna get started today with a revision. So Santana and Jamie, just see me in the back real quick. The instructional model that I started implementing, there are 3 components: blended learning, self-paced structure, and mastery-based grading. What you would see today is really a controlled chaos environment. You have some students starting a new lesson, watching an instructional video, taking their guided notes. You have other kids working on actual lesson assignments, collaborating on whiteboards, really problem solving. And then you'll see other students working on exit tickets to achieve mastery.
I like Mr. Furr's class because it teaches you independence. For every lesson, we start off with a video, and then during the video, we have to take notes. Mr. Furr, he does the videos himself. You'll hear his voice every time you watch a video.
In today's lesson, we're going to focus on finding our local maxes and mins.
I love it actually. You get to pause it, stop, and then go back and be able to rewatch the lesson over again until I fully understand and grasp the strategies and formulas.
And once they're done watching that instructional video, they transition to some type of assignment or activity.
That's it for A, right? Mm-hmm. And then we already found the derivative. And now say find the rate of change in the weight of the oil.
Everyone learns different, so you may be on lesson 5, someone may be on 3. It all depends on how you work. It's better than in a regular class where everybody has to stay on the same thing. The students help each other. So if you ahead, you might can help someone that's behind.
Oh, okay, so after you get 9 over 4, you gotta divide the whole thing by 4. Okay. All right.
After that, there's an exit ticket.
So an exit ticket is like a mini quiz. It's just a couple questions at the end of the lesson that really succinctly measure the student's ability to execute the activities they learned. So when a student has mastered an exit ticket, they move forward. When they don't, they have a reteach.
You're assuming that your Y is 0.
And then they try a new exit ticket until they've achieved mastery.
Showtime. Did you get your exit ticket right? Well, your derivative is spot on.
So because I am not delivering a lecture, I'm now free to work with students for the entirety of the class period.
X equals 4.
Yes. Woo.
Real quick.
All right. So I think what I hope you'll notice is that there's a lot of time spent talking with students in class as opposed to being up in the front. And I was really thinking like, man, when we come back, when students start coming back into the classroom, we need to have one-on-one conversations, not the sit down, shut up, listen to what I'm saying kind of conversation, but like actual, meaningful, engaged conversation. The 3 steps are, so now I'm gonna blank on it, but it's basically blended learning, which is your video or some sort of content that they can access on their own. So blended learning. Self-paced, so one student can move at a slower pace than another, and that's okay. It's totally fine within the course. And mastery-based, which means that the student is working towards mastery in a particular piece of knowledge or skill. So those are the 3 components of it. And I know when I first looked at this, I'm like, that's great and all, but if they're moving at different paces and I've got one student who only gets through 3 lessons and another student gets through 7, like what happens with like Mr. 3 lesson? Like they didn't learn anything. They didn't learn enough to be considered for passing. So they just not fail, they fail, or what happens? So the key piece there is the prioritized standards. So this part here where, and this is the part that I had never thought of before, and it blew my mind. And it's like, of course, why didn't I think of this beforehand? Which is that some parts of our curriculum are more important than others, right? There's some pieces of it that are absolutely foundational. We're talking about math. You've got to know how to add and subtract integers before you get to solving equations. You've got to understand that concept, or else you're toast. You're not going to make it through any of it. And so that would become something, that particular ability would become a must do or an essential standard that students must learn before moving on. But other ones, you can kind of say, well, I really, really want them to get this knowledge, but if they don't get it, they'll still be able to survive later on. And so those become the should do's or the non-essentials, where the students like, I hope you all get to this. Like my expectation is you will get to this, but you might not. And then the aspire to do's is 3rd level, is kind of the, man, it would be awesome if you can get to these, but I'm not expecting anybody to get to them. But if you're like cruising along and you're enjoying the content, and you're really excited about the curriculum and what we're talking about right now, then go learn more about clouds. Yeah, cloud types does not gonna help you in any of your future science endeavors, but it might be really fun for you. So go learn about it. Awesome. It's an aspire to do, but no, I'm not going to make it a lesson that it's going to hurt a student that's struggling to learn what happens when you heat up air, right? If I have a student who doesn't understand the basics of molecular motion as heat gets introduced to that, I don't want them to think about the difference between a cumulus and a altocumulus. I mean, I don't care about that. So prioritizing those standards and saying, if you get these 4 throughout this unit, you pass the course. As long as you get these 4, that's what I care about. And it makes it so much more tangible or not tangible, it makes it so much more approachable or doable for some of our students, because some of our students just feel like they've never been successful and there's always too much work and they always get too far behind. If they start getting behind, it's like, no worries, don't worry about that assignment. Do this one. This is the more important one. And then they have this kind of will to live. So, that's a part that that was a big one for me. This is definitely, I mean, one of the biggest things I saw say customizable on there. As a science teacher, I'm like, I can't make a video. I want this to be inquiry driven. I don't want videos going on too much. So yeah, of course, based on your content, you're going to need to, I'm going to have to run labs, and I'm not going to run a lab for one person and have it ready to go for the next person the next day and the next person the next day. It's not going to happen. When I do lab day, it's going to be lab day, and everybody in the class is going to do that lab and they're going to experience that lab. But I need to change the experience being from one that is going to demonstrate some knowledge as opposed to experiencing some phenomenon and trying to make sense of it and trying to make my own learning from it and then applying knowledge. Now, after that lab, if there is some sort of hopeful goal or hopeful knowledge I wanted them to pick out of that, then I might make a video for that, so that if a student was absent, they could watch the lab and then they could watch the kind of explanation of the content that I was hoping for them to get through. Again, for that new student who shows up and it's 2 weeks before the end of the unit, you can say, hey, go back and watch some of these labs and these explanations and try to pick up some of the content and the information. And maybe they have background already, so they can blow through those pretty quickly, get the content they need, and then maybe not catch up, but at least start getting caught up in the lessons. So that's kind of nutshell the Modern Classrooms project. And they do provide a free training. So they have a free course you can do online. It's shockingly self-paced, where you can move at it in your own pace. And then what, I think the next one is what I can do for you. Yeah. So what I have done, because I was a Kelly teacher, I started strong-arming a couple teachers over there to try this out and see if it would work. And I got one to bite. And so Tessa Carbon, the woman who took over my place, she decided, yep, let's do it. As long as you're willing to help me and build some of my work for me. I'm like, absolutely. So we built a unit, and then a lot of the teachers there at Kelly got interested and got excited. So then I built a Canvas course that kind of went through a lot of the content that they had on the free course, but it was built in Canvas, so you can kind of see what it would look like in a Canvas environment with some examples and things. So those are some of the things I have. I have some templates now because there's actually a couple of teachers who have done some of these things. I'm happy to be a thought partner, right? If you just want to say, what about this? How would this work? And what do you think about that? And then any technical issues, like if you want to switch over to Screencast-O-Matic and you're having a hard time figuring out how to make that work, I'm happy to jump on and with you and figure that out. So, and I'm working with Sandy now, and so we're gonna get some of the 6th grade stuff, because you're still doing 6th grade, Tommy?
Yeah, still all 6th.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a 6th grade unit next.
Sweet.
Yeah, IC1, that's the next one.
So Dustin, quick question. With this method, am I understanding correctly that everything they do is in class?
It can be. So it can be however you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one of the strengths of this is that a student can, let me just stop sharing here so people can actually see each other. A student could do whatever they need to do whenever they can do it. And so if you have a student who is falling behind, they can watch the videos at home because they have access to all of them. So if you have those half and half days, right, you're going to have half the students one day and half the students the next day, and then it's going to flip. So the students that are at home, maybe they're watching some of those instructional videos, maybe they're getting caught up on past work, whatever it might be. And then you come to class, and that's when you're doing the labs, that's when you're doing discussions, that's when you are engaging in some sort of meaningful conversation around the content that you watch. That way it's not just you watching videos and taking tests. Like, that kind of sucks. So like, get the students involved and get them talking with each other, but engaging in a more meaningful way where as a teacher, I'm not talking as much. I'm having the students talking more, and because that's where the learning obviously happens. So,
Dustin, you mind if I ask a question?
Oh, please.
So the big concern that keeps lingering, and I love this idea because I am so tired of talking and teaching math in front, after 17 years of doing that. But I'm just concerned about that big thing, that elephant that's like, okay, the kids come and they didn't watch anything, and you have 2/3 of your class that didn't do it. And now you're kind of stuck. Now do you reteach? You have to teach in front of them because most of the kids didn't do it. I just see that as being a real problem. Like, if they don't do their homework, but they were there for the instruction when you lectured it, they still might understand it. Whereas if it's the opposite and they didn't watch the lesson, what are they doing during class then? I guess that's kind of, do you have any answers for that?
Yeah. So I think the beauty is, so let's say we're in this situation, and on A days, they're supposed to be watching the videos, doing the practice work. So then when you come in, you can really dig in on something. Well, instead of digging in on it, they're going to sit down with their iPad and they're going to watch the video and they're going to do the practice problems. But the difference is, now you're there. So if they actually have a question, they can just raise their hand and say like, hey, Mr. Morrow, can you help me with this problem? I don't, you're talking about it, but I'm not getting it. So they just do it in class. And, they're basically, if the students aren't going to do the work at home and they're only going to do it in class, well, at least they're getting to do something. And the students who are doing the work at home, they aren't being held back by the students who aren't. So it's not like, oh God, we got to listen to this again because I did the homework with it. And so what Tessa said, the woman who taught, she said, it's like we usually teach to the middle and try to catch as many people at the outsides as we can. But this model, like, it teaches to the ends, actually, because it's giving the space for the students who want to push ahead, but it's also allowing the review for the students who are falling behind. So and when I did it in math, it worked really well because they wanted to engage in the hands-on activity or whatever, maybe not hands-on right now, but they wanted to engage in communication with other humans, at least. That's going to be a motivator. And so if they had to sit there and watch a video during class when everybody else gets to talk with each other, I think they're going to want to watch the video at home.
Thanks.
I'll be wrong for some people, but yeah.
Yeah, any other questions for Dustin? I think that's a great question because I know that can be what holds us back in a lot of ways, but I think we have to break through that and try some new things. And I think Dustin's right. Like, when kids see the fun, engaging things, especially after being at home and COVID, like, oh, these people are like engaging with each other now. Like, I think that.
And I love the idea of prioritizing the standards into those like must do, should do, can do, because I teach a lot of really bright kids who are feeling like failures for the very first time, and they don't know how to manage, and they're kind of falling apart, and I want to get them back. And so I love the idea of this. Do we have, I'm just going to throw this out here because if you don't ask, you can't. I would love to know if there are ready-made like enrichment type activities so that I can go, here's my incredibly far behind pacing chart for this year in math. And I've got my kids who get it, have got it, and they need to do something while everybody else catches up.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a magic wand on that one. What I just put in the chat is I know, darn it. The Modern Classrooms page, they have several different resources. They've got some example units that teachers have built. So you can kind of see how different people structure it. It's a little bit weird because it's built in Google Sites. And so I had a hard time figuring out how that would translate into a Canvas site, but at least you can get some of the content ideas that are in there. What a lot of people are doing for those extensions is they just say, okay, now we understand this concept. Now, where does this apply? Where does this in the real world? Where is it? And how can you use it? Go, have two students who are ahead of the game or whatever, who want to work together, have them work together and just do something with it and just create something. And that's it, beauty, done. So that's the simple version, but it's not as built out.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nils, that's great. One of the concepts there's a lot of pieces to this. We're not going to go into a lot of depth, but one of the ideas is that you can have students, sometimes you have those students who are ahead of the game and they love to be the helper, like they really like to help other students. They can be your kind of assistant teacher, especially in a particular unit. Let's say, student A, they just rocked this one lesson. They totally get it. And you can see that, especially if they're a low status student, like students don't normally think of them as a smart student, but they really understand this concept. Then you make them the superstar of that lesson. And you say, if you want to really understand this, or if you're struggling, this person knows their stuff. And that lifts up that student. And it also, just kind of gives them some cred. And, I might even choose that over, even if that student's a little behind in other lessons, like that kind of self-worth and self-esteem building that's possible there might be good even for the few interruptions, people asking them questions. So absolutely, people that are ahead can help other students. And I don't know about you, but one of the things I taught my students was that there's 3 levels of learning. There's I can do it. And then the second level is I can explain it. And the third level is I can teach it to someone who doesn't understand. And until you can do that third one, you don't really have it yet. Because I tell you, I did not learn Pythagorean theorem like I learned it after I taught it. Once I taught it, was like, oh, I get the full picture now. So absolutely.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why my calculus teacher made every student teach something.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And the other thing that I really, it's in here, but it's not explicitly stated in this Modern Classrooms project, but it's kind of putting control into the students' hands about the pace they want to work at, the lessons they want to learn, and also like learn it yourself. Like here's a video, but try to struggle through it a little bit, because the more we struggle, the more we're likely to learn and remember it long term. So, I think there's some pieces there as well. Because the one pushback that sometimes students and parents will give is, you're not teaching us anymore. It's like, well, actually I am. I'm just doing it on a video, and now you can watch as many times as you want. And then I'm here to help you if you have any questions. So actually I'm still teaching you. Still guiding the learning.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we are just about out of time. Are there any more questions for Dustin before we head out? Dustin, that was super helpful, really informative. I get excited about this sort of thing and just the opportunities for kids to learn in different ways, and for teachers to engage with their students in different ways. I really appreciate your insight on this. Does anybody else have questions before we head out?
I see one in the chat from Tommy. So priority standards, honestly, so math has definitely done it. So, Krista Hawker, she can help a lot with that, and she would be happy to run you through that stuff.
I wondered if the state has even sent out anything that here's all the highlighted the big things you should hit. I just wondered if anybody knew if there was for each subject or not.
I think our district has really been working on that.
I was going to say, Krista does have that. It was based on the ODE new, like all of their new guidance.
Yeah.
The thing that
and Maddie Ahern were actually like leading the charge in a lot of ways at the ODE level. So I'm pretty sure that they have quite a bit.
Yeah.
We're lucky in this area to have such amazing math folks.
Right.
Thank you, Dustin. It was very interesting. I appreciate getting to learn from you.
Absolutely. Give me an email if you got any questions.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Dustin. Thank you. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. And if you guys need extra support, Dustin has, are you going to share your slides with me, or will you just, because I'll send out a follow-up email with the recording. With my, that's perfect. Okay.
Yeah, put my contact info in there as well.
Thanks
but
a lot.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
Take care, Jesse.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll definitely share that with you, Amy. I'll just do it right now so I don't forget.
Okay. Sounds good. And yeah, if you all have other PD that you're looking at wanting, please reach out to me and let me know what you would like me to focus on there, and I'll do that for you. Well, if I can't lead it, then somebody else will. I'll find them for you. Dustin, I might be reaching out to you again. All right, you have a question, go.
I had a quick question. I teach elementary and primary. And do you see this as being most applicable to middle and high? I could see it would be really handy for outliers instead of in the middle, like my super high kids, or maybe somebody who is like a pre-eval, but is not at grade level. But we're constricted to using Seesaw, which is, there's issues with that. But anyways, so using Seesaw, but we can link to videos and stuff like in Google and elsewhere. But anyways, so do you know of, like, do any of those websites you referenced, do they have examples of how people are using that at primary?
Yes, there definitely are. The one thing that happens is as you go from high school down to elementary, you need more and more structure, and there's less and less of the self-paced time, the individual time. And so that's something that I've heard a lot where they say, by the time you're getting down to first, second, third grade, like, maybe third, actually they're doing okay, but first, second graders, they are definitely needing very short little periods of independent work time where they're doing some of this independent work, and then a lot of like, okay, now let's come back and let's make sure we're directing in the right direction. And not an elementary teacher. I have no idea the realities of elementary. I can't even imagine it. Like middle school is my happy place, but can't even imagine little ankle biters coming at you. I'm sure you get lots of hugs and love, but also a lot of biting and
No, well, that's the thing. When we go back in 2 weeks, well, K1 does, we can't get hugs anymore, which is a bummer. I know that's a bummer. It's a big bummer. But there's 3 things as you're saying that. So I'm going to try to look up models of how other people have done it. There's 3 programs the district has us using. And as you were speaking, that's built in this way. They're responsive. So Dreambox, Lalilo, which is new, it's the Reading Foundations program for early primary, and Raz Kids, which I've used for years. So once you set them at a level, they just keep working up at their own. So there's 3, it's not a whole class. It's like, this is for reading, this is for foundations, this is for math. So at least there's 3 responsive programs. Now I just need to make sure they're doing it. Like I thought some kids were using the Lilo. I'm like, oh, you haven't checked in since December. What's going on? Look.
Yeah.
So, like,
and actually, you mentioned it. Whatever, something you said in there made me think also about the fact I forgot to mention SPED. Like this is so good for the SPED teams because they have a way to access the way the teachers are teaching the content, and also then they know kind of like where the students are at, because there's a really clear delineation of how they're doing on this particular content and this thing. So where they're struggling and all that. So yeah, that's great. Tommy just asked if I'm willing to come to his school and do this presentation. Absolutely. So if you want me to, the only thing I ever tell principals is I'm like, you just can't mandate it. You can't say everybody has to do it, because it's too much work to mandate. But I think the potential is really powerful, especially if your whole building's doing it. Again, you can share so many more resources, and Canvas is actually pretty easy to share between schools. So if the folks at Kelly and Kennedy start to share resources, videos and content and sites and stuff they build, then it just makes our jobs so much easier. So
thank you.
Right on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy and Dustin. Appreciate it.